I'm going to ponder and think about and discuss personally about enlightenment and spirituality. If you're able to listen and able to care, then I hope you can listen and let these words have some type of positive benefit for you. If you're unable to listen, that's okay. This isn't for you, and that's okay. You might dislike what you hear. You might not agree with what I think or the words that I say. An enlightened individual will simply dismiss it, try and have an ethical and calm discussion. And an unenlightened individual will get mad, will be a bully, will be crude, will be cruel, and they will endeavor in sleazy conduct and misbehavior. I rebuke that kind of mentality and behavior. But because this message is going out, the inevitability is I'm going to see that kind of behavior. I know and will understand who this message has touched, and I'll know who got angry, upset, or just didn't like me. It's not hard to distinguish the difference. This is for those that it would benefit. And if this doesn't benefit you, or you don't want it to benefit you, you don't have to participate, and I ask you not to. And I'll be talking a little bit personally about my life, but mostly condensing and discussing the concept and simplifying the context of what enlightenment is from my perspective and what I personally believe, what it should be considered. I am meditating and praying, and I'm allowing myself to take my time to discuss this. And if that bothers you, that's okay. You don't have to participate. But for those who can be patient and calm, probably those that can meditate and have self-control. Either this intrigues them, has given them interest, they wish to participate in the discussion, and that's fine. We discuss spirituality, and enlightenment. The reality is we have tons of religions, tons of philosophies. And I want to condense them all to a single point. If you take the majority of philosophies and religions, and I'll be focusing mostly on Buddhism and Christianity, if you truly understand the context, and if you truly take the time to understand what spirituality or enlightenment is, it boils down to the reality that life is a struggle, suffering is very real, you suffer, I suffer, all things in life suffer. If you take one thing away, and you've listened this far, if you take one major point away from this, I urge you to understand that all living things suffer, and that this life is composed and constructed around suffering. It is an ineffable reality, and it is a truth that cannot be hidden. We are suffering. So at its fundamental basis and core of spirituality and enlightenment, from Christianity to Buddhism to all religions and philosophies that seek to understand the greater understanding of what being transcendental is, at its core and foundation that needs to be understood, and I urge you to understand it, is that life is suffering. I am suffering. You are suffering. We all are suffering. Life is difficult. Life has pains. And we all go through different journeys. But at the end of the day, we all suffer. This is where we learn empathy. If I suffer and you suffer, that means the things that make me suffer, if they happen to you, especially if I do it to you, what has made me suffer, if I make you suffer the way I have suffered, I can be assured and understand and know that you will suffer the same way. That is empathy. Now, if we can understand that if I can suffer and I can make something else suffer, and understand that it did have suffering, then therein lies the concept that if I hurt someone else, I am hurting myself. And that comes around because if you make someone else suffer, if you are cruel, that person or someone else will inevitably come around and bring suffering to you because you are spreading it out. You are giving suffering out to other people on purpose. And that is going to make someone try and bring suffering to you because they're suffering, everyone's suffering, and because you're making their suffering worse, they're going to try and make you suffer. So it is illogical, nonsensical, and absolutely ignorant to go out of your way to make other people suffer and be cruel just because you can. So we understand that the foundation of enlightenment and spirituality is that we are all inside this journey and we are suffering. Now, people will tell you culture, ideas, intellect, material wealth, and a bunch of other things are the things you need to do to achieve higher enlightenment and spirituality. Those are distractions. They have ulterior motives. And a lot of the stuff that people try and get you to do is nonsensical. To find your basis and true core in being enlightened or having spiritual truth in your life is the action of easing the burden of suffering for others. The true enlightenment is when you gain wisdom and discernment and the ability to put forth action to ease the burden of suffering of those around you and for yourself. I don't care about you being a genius. I don't care about your intelligence. I don't care about your wealth. I don't care about your attractiveness. I don't care about your skills. I don't care about any of that. Those things will disappear. You will die. Those things can fade away, or they can be taken away in an instant. Anyone can do those things. Anyone can achieve those things. What is difficult is becoming wise and gaining the discernment and the ability to put forth action into easing the burden of others who are suffering and the suffering for yourself. Because if you can do that, one, things fall into place. You become intelligent, you become smart, you become aware, you gain skills, you gain cooperation, you gain friendships, you gain community, you gain all the things that you're fighting for anyways. Those are a byproduct of helping others with their burden of suffering. And two, if I am providing service and I help my neighbor with his suffering, and my neighbor helps his neighbor with his suffering, and then his neighbor helps me because I am their neighbor and they help me with my suffering, there is a cyclical nature and everyone gets helped in the end because we are being of service. That's why Christianity focused so much on serving others and forgiving others. Because showing compassion and helping others becomes cyclical in nature, and it's just a net benefit. Period. Now, what is the best way to start learning how to help other people ease their burdens of suffering? Well, you have to understand yourself. You have to know how to be reverent. You have to know how to be calm, and you have to know how to have self-control. People who don't have self-control cannot help others. They cannot ease the burden of those suffering because they cannot control themselves. If you cannot control yourself, you will hurt others. You will add to their suffering. So learning about yourself, learning how to have self-control, and learning how you suffer, why you suffer, and understanding your inner self is one of the main focal points that people start with when meditating and trying to achieve enlightenment or spirituality, is for this reason. Because the best way to help others is first to help yourself. Just like in an airplane, when the air mask comes down, you need to put the air mask on yourself before you help someone else. If you are starving, in debt, and poor, you cannot help others. You are suffering too much. You need to be in a good spot, and you can't be overexerting yourself and hurting yourself to ease the burdens of others. That is mismanagement, that is not self-control, and that is not self-awareness. So learning about meditating, being calm, being at peace, clearing your mind, getting rid of intrusive thoughts, and being reverent is important. Many Christian churches and other religions practice reverence. I know there's different types of cultures and different types of Christianity that are not reverent because they believe celebration is a type of worship. But reverence is important and has its place. Being calm has its place. Being patient has its place. They all have their benefits in teaching you more about yourself. And when you learn more about yourself, you have the time, ability, and skill set to learn about others. Because it is obvious and apparent that if something hurts you and makes you suffer, to assume that those things most likely hurt and make others suffer just as you do. But many people stop at this step, and they think once I can meditate and be calm and reverent, that they are enlightened and they are spiritual and they have achieved oneness with the universe, and they know that they can be communing with God and the heavenly hosts and divinity just because they can be reverent and sit still. That is just the first step. And it's not really a big step. It's the bare minimum. Once you know how to control yourself and you know how to gauge your suffering, gauge what you like, what you dislike, able to speak up for yourself, defend yourself without violence, and communicate, then you have to start being aware and vigilant and learning how to help others, learning how to give to them, be of service, and ease the suffering of others. The core foundation of enlightenment and spirituality is easing the suffering of all things that are alive unbiasedly. You need wisdom and discernment and good judgment, and it takes practice. And it's okay to have a difficult time. It's okay to struggle. It's okay to take baby steps. As long as you're always making progress a little bit day by day, that is fine. At the end of the day, we lose everything. We age. We become ugly. At least considered unattractive. Which in reality is just signs that we aren't healthy. We shouldn't be reproducing anymore. Ugly wasn't the right word. It came out. It was an intrusive thought. That's okay. The reality is we lose our health. We lose our material wealth when we die. And when we die, are we going to look back at our life and say, yeah, I hurt those people. I got that feeling. I got that cruelty out. I did things. I bullied them. I did it to them. There was nothing they could do. There was nothing they could do. Nothing. There was nothing they could do to me. I could do it to them. They couldn't do anything. I did it. I hurt them. I made it worse. I made it worse. Yes, I made it. Is that really the core of the person that you want to be? Is that the core of your soul? Is that the core of who you want to be remembered as? I really hurt them. I hurt everyone. I gave it to them. I did it to them. They couldn't do anything. They couldn't do anything about it. Is that the core that you really want to have once this is all over? Or do you want to be remembered, and most specifically, do you want to remember yourself saying, they're suffering, I'm suffering, we're all suffering, I hurt a lot, I know they hurt too, I did my best, I helped them hurt just a little bit less. I know I stopped that stuff. I prevented their hurt so many times, and there were brief moments where they helped me not suffer in small things, big or small, big events, small events, it doesn't matter. They reciprocated. We tried. We made an effort. I made an effort. Even if I'm alone, even if everyone hated me, even the people that were cruel to me, even the people that bullied me, I eased their burdens. I had the power to ease their suffering, and I did it, and there was nothing they could do about it, because we are all suffering, and everyone wishes to be liberated from suffering, and they can't take that away from me. Because if I give liberation from suffering, even the cruelest, most cowardly, most wicked, most vile and evil person will accept it graciously, because they are suffering as well. I eased the burden of suffering that was inevitable. I fought the inevitable instead of giving in, instead of wallowing, instead of doing the easy. Everything's suffering. So to be cruel is easy. To hurt others is easy. It's happening anyways. You can't stop it. You can't stop it. So it's easy. It is the easiest thing to do, to hurt, to bully, to be cruel, to be wicked, to be evil. But I fought a good fight. And from the wicked to the evil, to the benevolent, to the harmless, to the suffering, and to those that had everything yet still felt empty on the inside, I eased their burdens when I could, because I had the power to. I had the authority to. I had the responsibility to. I did it. And nobody can take that away from me, and nobody can take away that difficulty from me, and nobody can know the feeling that I felt, knowing that I could help and make their lives better, And I prayed and hoped that they would learn from my example and do the same for me. Enlightenment and spirituality is important. Evil's very real. There's a spectrum. There's two sides to it. There's innate suffering, which means things have to die for other things to live. Consumption, animals eating people, animals eating your family can be considered evil because they made you suffer. It's evil because they made you suffer. But because it's something innate, it can be considered forgivable because they have no choice. It is a natural part of life, of chaos. But then there's the other side of the spectrum, which is cruelty. A realm where people know that you don't have to suffer, you don't have to be suffering. They could alleviate your burden, they can make your life easier. They have the power, they have the authority, they have the ability, they have the discernment, they have the wisdom. They can make your life free of suffering. But they choose cruelty. I can hurt you, and there is nothing you can do about it. That is evil. It is childish behavior. Evil is either natural, animalistic, or the inability to have self-control, childish behavior. And once you become wise, learn discernment, gain some enlightenment, or become enlightened, you realize how childish, inane, trivial, and foolish it is to like hurting people or to not try and ease the burden of those that are naturally suffering due to the reality that life naturally causes suffering.